Hi, everyone. This week, we're going to be investigating the ethics of belief. Now, that might sound a bit unusual since we commonly think of people's actions as the central topic of morality. What someone did might have been morally wrong. So, the fact that they killed another person, that action was morally wrong. But when it comes to beliefs, yes, beliefs can be true or false, they can be silly or ridiculous, but it might seem a bit strange to think of someone's belief as being morally wrong. So, in fact, some people might try to argue that we cannot morally judge a person's beliefs on the grounds that everyone has a right to their own beliefs. Now, these are the kinds of issues we're going to be reflecting on this week. As we'll see, when people appeal to this supposed right to their beliefs, they're often not actually clear on what this supposedly means. And as a result, they end up conflating a number of distinct ideas that they ought to be separating. And so the ethical issues surrounding our beliefs are more subtle and complicated than many people think. Our readings and our discussions this week are going to be trying to sort of illustrate and understand some of those complexities. So in this video, we're going to be talking about William Clifford's evidentialism and his shipowner example. We'll briefly just talk a little bit about some questions related to what is a right to believe. Then we'll introduce Clifford's moral evidentialism. We'll talk about his shipowner example. And then I'm going to leave you with a couple questions that I want you to reflect on for yourself before you go to the next video. So, people often disagree with one another. This is just a fact of life. And now, consider a familiar scenario. Two people are arguing with one another back and forth. They're not making much sort of progress. They're sort of criticizing each other's beliefs until eventually one of them just sort of gives up and says, look, I have a right to my belief. You can believe whatever you want, but I'm going to believe what I want because I have a right to my beliefs. So, I'm sure you've all maybe run into that kind of situation. But is this true? If yes, what does it actually mean to have a right to our beliefs? Where does that right come from? Do we just get it for nothing, or do we have to earn a right to our beliefs? And if there is a right to our beliefs, are there any limits to that right? Could it ever be morally wrong for us to form a belief, even if we have a right to that belief? And what kind of actions would violate another person's right to their belief? So in this paper, The Ethics of Belief, William Clifford argues for a moral claim about beliefs known as moral evidentialism. So this is the view that it's wrong always, everywhere, and for anyone to believe absolutely anything without sufficient evidence to back it up. He doesn't just mean that the belief is false or that it's unjustified or that the person doesn't know it to be true. He's not making an epistemic claim. He's making an ethical claim. He thinks that the person has done something morally wrong when they form a belief without sufficient evidence to back it up. And so that seems to be a rather strong claim. Why does Clifford believe that? His primary case comes from his shipowner example. So I'm going to describe that here. Here's the critical details. There's a shipowner that's about to send a ship to sea, and there's evidence that the ship might not be seaworthy. The shipowner begins to doubt whether the ship is seaworthy since there is this evidence against its seaworthiness. But the shipowner thankfully is able to get rid of those doubts, and they convince themselves that the ship is perfectly safe. But the shipowner didn't get rid of his doubts by finding any evidence that the ship is safe. They didn't go out, look at it, inspect it. Rather, they convinced themselves to ignore the counter evidence that existed by repeating to himself how the ship has made it to shore safely before, and by putting his trust in providence or faith that nobody would let harm happen to these people, these passengers. And so he sends the ship off to sea, and when he goes off, he has the best wishes for the people on there. He believes that the ship's going to be perfectly safe, they're going to make it to their destination perfectly fine. He doesn't want any harm to happen to these people. But the ship sinks, and everyone on it dies. Here's the question. Is the shipowner morally responsible for the deaths of those people? Did the shipowner do anything morally wrong in this example? When Clifford thinks about this example, he thinks almost everybody's going to look at it and say, of course, yes, we're going to blame the shipowner. And Clifford thinks that this is support in some way for his evidentialist claim. All right, here's a slight modification to the case that Clifford also considers. Imagine the case exactly as it was, but this time the shipowner sends the ship off to sea, believes that it's going to be safe, and the ship makes it to its destination just fine and nobody is killed. So, is it true that in this case, since there's no harm, there's no foul? So, did the ship owner do anything wrong here? Well, Clifford thinks that even in this case, he believes that the ship owner still did something wrong, even though nobody got hurt. He says, look, the man would not have been innocent. He did something wrong. He would only have been not found out. So since nobody got hurt, since the ship didn't sink, nobody sort of discovers his wrongdoing, is the idea. The ship owner merely gets lucky and gets away with doing something that was morally wrong, according to Clifford here. So here's some questions for you to consider about this case before the next video. Do you agree with Clifford that the ship owner has done something wrong in these cases? If so, what was wrong about what the ship owner did? And why was it wrong? And how is this example supposed to help support Clifford's evidentialism, his claim about the morality of our beliefs? Reflecting on this example and what Clifford says, can you sort of reconstruct premises and a conclusion that you think captures Clifford's reasoning? And once you've done that, do you think that that reason or argument for evidentialism is a good argument? Why or why not? So that's all for this video. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.